Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember
Here.
Councilmember Marquez. Here.
Here.
Mayor Anderson.
Here. Okay, at this time we'll entertain matters of interest to council members for items not on the agenda. Anything? Okay. Thank you. Town manager report.
So I just have a couple quick things. I put the printed out report on the back as you come in, and then I also put one on the council dais too. So a couple things I want to talk about. The main one is I want to let council know that so in February we honored the K-9 officer Eros with a certificate of recognition for his work in the January shooting spree that happened, and unfortunately Eros passed away. I think on June 6th. From a really aggressive form of prostate cancer. So unfortunately he's passed away, and as they say, crossed the rainbow bridge. A couple other things. Our longtime building inspector, Rhonda Gannon, has officially retired. So at this point we have two folks that are filling in. One is the former building official from the city of Sacramento. And so he's filling in on Thursday, Fridays. Monday and Tuesdays are being covered by one of our part-time folks that came and that would come quite a bit. His name's John, right? John? So he's coming on Mondays and Tuesdays. So far there hasn't been any issue with Rhonda leaving. They've been able to pick up the slack, and she was able to work with the gentleman's name's Josh from Sacramento. She was able to work with him pretty well. Bureau Veritas is finding our permanent replacement, and we should have that person in here probably by the end of the month, I'm hoping. And then the other thing that I wanted to note that Brick can kind of fill you in, that we finished the seal coat project throughout the town's areas that are covered by the maintenance districts. So that went pretty well. There was one street that we had a little bit of a hiccup on. The equipment broke down that the contractor was using, so they had come in a little bit later than we thought that they would, but everything's been finished up and looks pretty good. Anything? Okay. And then the last thing, the umbrellas that we bought for the park, for the tables outside, those umbrellas were kind of broken during the windstorms and stuff during the wintertime, so we'll be replacing those. I'm going to have them up by the end of the week in time for the Family Fest, which is this Friday. So those new umbrellas will get put up by then, and if I can find the same table and chairs, I'm going to get them again at Home Depot, get a couple more of those. Last time I went, they didn't have them, so we might have to order them. But we'll be getting a couple more tables and 4 more chairs to put out as well. So that's it. I can answer questions if you have any.
Councilmember Baker.
Kelly, I want to say it was about 8-9 months ago we were discussing a permanent shade structure to go up in this area. Have we made any headway on that?
We didn't make any headway. I was under the assumption that we were going to keep the little umbrellas that we had and not move forward with the permanent shade structure, because I don't really know where it would go. You could put it over the spray pad itself, but then you've got shade instead of, or put it over the grass, and I'm worried about the grass dying. I thought that the umbrellas worked pretty well and people can move the tables around if they need to move them. But if you want to pursue the permanent one, we can look at that. I just need to know where you want to put it.
Okay. I'll get with you on that.
Okay. All right.
Okay. And there's we have the town engineer here. Britt, wasn't there, aren't we anticipating some repairs on the splash pad? What is the status of those?
So we had some leaks under the splash pad. We were able to fix many of those, so it's operating fine now. Okay. It's a discussion I'm having with Sean that we need to put it in the budget to replace our spray pad. It'll probably wear out again at the end of this year.
Okay.
I don't anticipating it working next year, so we need to talk about how to replace that with a recyclable one, because this one is a one-time use only. So we need to kind of update that and replace a lot of the equipment.
Okay. Well, if you guys would just put together like
report for us and recommendation?
It'll be coming to you through, at least for award of the contract. It's in this year's budget, though, so it is programmed to be done this year.
And
Jim?
if I may, it is on one of the things I was going to discuss about the budget too. We may just want to look at that number and increase it a bit because I know that the water recyclers are very, very expensive. So.
Okay. Did we announce pool times at the last council meeting? What are those times? Remember?
12:30 to 4:30. Most Fridays of June and July.
Okay,
There's a couple days, 4 days each month this time ago.
great. Okay, moving on. Loomis Chamber report. Jenny's not here. Did she pass anything to you?
The only thing that she would have probably talked about is Civic Lab. So the Civic Lab last month, led by Mary Beth Voris, our planning director, she, Jenny, and Brian Nelson went to the marketplace portion of Civic Lab. So that's where SACOG invited a bunch of different vendors in terms of consultants, to come and hear what each corridor is doing. So that went pretty well. The next Civic Lab meeting, which is next week, we'll be getting the results of any consultants who are interested in what we're looking to do. And so on the report, the manager report, the Civic Lab, what I think the likely outcome of this whole process will be some sort of an action plan that'll help with outreach efforts when the town begins the economic development master plan. And so the consultant that we're able to get hooked up with through SACOG will feed into that and help with the outreach portion of it. And then we'll use that as kind of a launching pad for the actual master plan update.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on. Public comment. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council, please come forward. This time is reserved for those in the audience who wish to address the council on subjects that are not on the agenda. The audience should be aware that council may not discuss details or vote on non-agenda items. Your concerns may be referred to staff or placed on the next available agenda.
Good evening, council members. My name is Miguel Yukovich. I live at 5911 Craig Court, Loomis, California. And I'm here to express some concerns about the fact sheet that the town attorney prepared on the villages. Basically, apparently it was done because so many questions had been asked of staff. My first question is, how was this distributed to people, or when somebody called and had a question, they were mailed out? I'm not sure what happened with these fact sheets. Secondly, the fact sheet does not show what the developer is getting. It does not point out that the lots are smaller than normally allowed, that there is no front or backyards in many of the homes, that a mellow roost district is allowed, which shifts development costs from the developer to the homeowner and has never been used in Loomis before. The attorney does not point out that many of the conditions, such as park fees and fees for Horseshoe Bar, are paid for by all new homes in Loomis, not just the villages. While the villages are paying them, so does everybody else. He does not point out that most of the $14.5 million in road construction fees are roads in the development, which do not help existing homes. It gives the impression that all that money is being used for roads outside the development. The general plan calls for a minimum of 2.5 acre parks. Also, the park and recreation element calls for that, and none of the parks in the villages meet that requirement. He conveniently forgets to mention that 5,000 cars a day will be added onto Horseshoe Bar Road. He mentions that, yes, there will be great impact and the council overrode the great impact. But as a fact, I think it's nice to know that there'd be approximately 5,000 additional cars there. No mention is made that the 20-foot alleys instead of streets will be used in one half of the subdivision. Also, it's kind of neat, there's a statement there that says there's sidewalks in this development. I'm the only person ever brought up the question about sidewalks. But what is a sidewalk? Well, it's a path generally paved along a street or road. And on the alley access ones, there are no sidewalks. Also mentioned, not mentioned, is a future commercial zone land that is being changed to residential and the impact that would have on the future revenues for the town of Loomis. No mention is made that the village population exceeds the SACOG growth projections from an annual growth rate of 2% to a growth rate of 16%. While a town can prepare, only facts that favor the developer have been presented. Got it. None of these negative
Miguel.
points were mentioned. Almost done.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. And I'm requesting
take
the
your seat.
town council get a ruling on the legality of the fact
Thank you,
sheet
Miguel.
from the Attorney General office.
Appreciate it.
You sure it was 2 minutes?
It was 3.
Or
It
3.
was over 3. Thank you. Appreciate it.
My name's Pam Blake. I live on Angelo Drive. I just had a question on the consent agenda, number 6, regarding collection of charges on the tax roll for the following districts. I live in the Sunrise Loomis community area, and I did look at my property taxes before I left the house, so it's not on my property tax, but I'd like to know where that is. The only,
Excuse me, this is for items not on the agenda?
Yeah.
So
Oh.
we should hold that discussion
well, the
until we-
agenda stuff is down here. I was just asking a question up there.
You'll have a
the
chance to
consent
Oh,
comment
okay.
on-
That's part of the consent, so
Yeah, you can comment on the
okay.
consent items.
yeah.
Okay, well, then my other thing is, do I get to start over?
No.
No, my only other thing was, we had our last softball game doubleheader last night, and we did take first place, because I've talked about the golden spikes here and the repetitive noise on the bat, and also my shirt says everything, and I'm really tired of walking the neighbors' hoods and talking to people, so I'm not going to get into it like, Miguel did, but my shirt says everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Radin, 3486 Del Mar. I wasn't at the last meeting, and I'm sorry for that. I had a family thing that I had to go to, but I wanted to make a comment about, I did watch the whole thing online, and I want to say thank you to whoever is recording this, because it's great. But I watched the whole meeting online afterwards, and I wanted to make a comment. I wrote it down because I want to make sure I get it through. So in regards to the noise dispute between Mr. and Mrs. Marshall and the Golden Spikes baseball, the municipal code states that the exterior noise levels should be measured at the property line, and that didn't happen. In fact, asking the Marshalls where they thought the sound was the loudest is probably one of the least scientific ways of measuring the sound intensity levels in their backyard. The sensor probably should have been placed on top of the wall in their backyard and then moved along the wall to determine where the intensity was the greatest, because that's so easy, those things are so easy to move. To be clear, I'm not asking you to go back and reconsider your decision. I don't think it would change your minds in any way. But in the future, I wanted to let you know the sound measurements were done improperly, and in the future, the town should make certain that the sound measurements are measured according to municipal code. So yeah. Also, I wanted to make one other comment about all of the way you approach the problem. Well, you weren't there, but the rest of you approached it in a professional manner, and I wanted to say that's great. But I wanted to publicly commend Councilmember Duncan, because he went out of his way to actually try to solve the problem, whereas the rest of you, you did a great job, but you were really there just doing your job, which was, let's try to figure out what's the right thing to do. And I want to say thank you for actually trying to solve the problem itself. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing and hearing none, we'll close public comment. Move on to the adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Noes? Okay. Agenda passes. Opportunity to comment on the consent calendar. Anyone wishing to remove something from the consent calendar, please come forward now. Councilmember.
Well, I've been coming to the...
Councilmember Baker requests to move item 6.
That was the item you requested, correct?
Yes, I just wanted clarification of what it involved and mainly my clarification of what exactly is this?
We'll let staff address that. Yep. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar? Excuse me. The consent agenda.
Yeah. Move to approve consent 1 through 5, 7, and 8.
Motion second by Clark Kretz. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Noes. Consent agenda passes. Item 6. Roger?
So, I'll turn. Okay, I'm trying to throw my voice without the mic. So, these are various subdivisions that were built throughout the town. As they were built, these mellow roost districts or maintenance districts were adopted, and the fees were calculated based on an engineer study of what repairs and maintenance would need to be required over the 50 years. That was calculated out, divided up among the various addresses or lots. So if you don't have that on your tax bill, it's probably because you're not in one of the maintenance districts. If you want to call up and we could check it. If we get your address, call us at Town Hall. We'll look up the APN number and see if you're in one of them. If you are, it should be on your tax bill that says something like maintenance district such and such on it.
Could it be because I am the original owner from 35 years ago that I don't have this on my property tax?
If you were here 35 years ago, there probably wasn't
Yes.
one of the districts.
She's in Sunrise Loomis, a lot of that. we
Yeah.
don't have.
So a lot of that isn't in
Yeah.
a maintenance district.
Okay,
So
thank you.
yeah, if you've been around that long, you're probably not in a maintenance district.
Roger, what does a maintenance district cover?
If you curb sidewalk repair every 50 years, chip seal. For instance, if you just got your street refinished, you're in one of the maintenance districts, because we went through all of them that had that due and resurfaced the roads. So we do that every 7 years theoretically.
Okay.
Sunrise Loomis 2 is, I believe, my street, Longview and Terrace. So it took me a while to figure that out too, because I originally lived in Sunrise Loomis, the original. And when I moved, I didn't think I had a Melrose, but I found out later I did. So thank you.
Okay. Okay, any other public comment on that item? Council discussion?
Move approval.
Motion second by Duncan. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? No. Okay, item passes. Moving on to public hearing, I'm going to request that we move item 10 up, facade item, unless there's any objection. Seeing and hearing none. Okay. Staff, item 10, facade improvement matching grant applications.
Yeah, thank you. So in your packet, you have two different facade improvement grant requests. These are the last requests that we'll have for this program. It's been so successful that we've expended most of the money. There's a little bit left, but not enough worth trying to do more with. Council in last fiscal year and in the current fiscal year identified $50,000, set that money aside for the facade improvement program. We have two requests before you today. Both of those are $8,000 matching grant components. So if you recall, the actual program itself was set up with two different components. There was a $4,000 somebody come and applies for the money. If it's $4,000 or less, I have, as the town manager, the authority to enter into the grant. It doesn't come to council for approval. The $8,000 grants are matching grants, so whoever's requesting that money would do a 50% match. So they put up $8,000, we put up $8,000, but the grants are paid back on a reimbursement basis. So when the project is complete, I go out and make sure that they did what they said they were going to do, and we cut them a check for the invoice that shows that they paid what they needed to pay. So the two requests that are before you tonight, one is for Divine Desserts for $8,000 for the matching grant, and then the second is actually for Larry Hopi's various properties on Taylor Road on both sides of Horseshoe Bar Road. So I'm going to do Divine Desserts first because it's a little bit more contained and a little bit easier to get your arms around, I think. So Divine Desserts is asking for, well, first I should backtrack and say that Esther Aguirre, who is the owner of Divine Desserts, asked for a $4,000 grant. Previously, she sent me an email requesting that we pulled that request out. She didn't do anything, didn't expend any of the money, but asked for us to instead consider this matching grant as opposed to the $4,000. So she's requesting $8,000 to help offset the costs associated with building a covered patio for outdoor seating on the side of her building. So right now, you walk down some steps. If you're at the front door, you go down a little walkway, walk down some steps, and then there's a cement little patio place, little patio thing out there. It's not usable in terms of a patio for people to sit in. There's no table and chairs on it. It's not ADA accessible. And so what Esther is intending to do is to raise the level of the patio up, actually put sort of a little deck out there, make it ADA accessible from the front door, and then put seating on the outside to allow for folks to eat their pastries as they're after they buy them and drink their coffee with that as well, and then it'll be covered to keep folks out of the sun. So staff fully supports that application and recommends that council approve it. Esther is here. She can answer questions for you if you have any. I think it'd be good just to keep the record kind of straight if council consider the Divine Desserts one separately and then take the request for Mr. Hopi after that.
Okay, we'll do that. Esther, do you have a comment?
Not really. He pretty much said it all.
He did a good job?
Yes, he did a good job. We just wanted a little bit more. Okay. I'm Esther Aguirre, and we're at 6045 South Walnut Street. And we just wanted something because our customers request that we have a little bit of seating for them. So we try to explore what would be best for our customers. And even like when it's raining, you come in 2 feet and you only can fit so many people in that small area. So we figured during that time, even in the winter, we would have somewhere where their customers, most of them are just picking up something to go. But for those that would want to come there and have a cup of coffee and something for them, that's what our goal is.
I'm pleased to see you're bringing it up to ADA compliance too.
Yes.
That'll help. And of course, this is exactly what the facade program is meant to do in the way of fixing storefronts and making them more appealing. So thanks for applying, and I wish you all the best.
Okay.
So staff's recommendation is to take each item one by one here.
Yeah.
Let's open it up for public comment. Seeing and hearing none. Council discussion. Want to entertain a motion?
I second.
Okay, motion second by Duncan. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Noes? Okay, thank you.
Thanks. The next grant requests, there's actually 5 of those for Mr. Hopi, who is also in the audience today, and he can answer questions from you.
Okay.
So he is looking to renovate several storefronts that he owns those properties for. In the staff report, it lists the addresses, and I'll just kind of name them off quickly so people know where we're looking at. Loomis Chiropractic, the Smog Shop, that's on the corner of Horseshoe Bar and Taylor, the Horseshoe Bar Grill, the Loomis News Building, and then the Flooring America Building. And so Larry's asking for the $8,000 facade improvement grants for each of those, bringing that total up to $40,000. And then also is asking for assistance on the architectural side. So the grant program does allow for architectural help as well. And because the grant request is at the level that it is, staff's recommending that money actually come out of, we have a separate reserve account called, or it's not an account, but reserve in our general fund reserve called business assistance. And so staff's proposing to take that $50,000 out of the business assistance line item rather than the facade improvement grant because there's not enough money in there to accommodate it. But because these businesses are such a integral part of downtown, such visible storefronts, we believe that it's very important for us to support the grant requests, and we recommend to you that that you approve those. Mr. Hope is here. He can answer questions if you have them. The grants are broken up, $40,000 total between the 5 different properties, so $8,000 each, and then $10,000 in matching funds for the architectural services, and those would be, again, reimbursement after the expenses are paid.
Okay, let's open it up for council comment or questions. Jan?
I would like to speak.
Okay. Hi, Larry. Come on up.
My name is Larry Hobie, Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for your time tonight. My address is 5220 Valverde Road in Loomis. As some of you probably know, over time I've been acquiring several parcels on the 2 corners in Loomis. The Loomis News Building, the Horseshoe Bar and Grill, the Smog Shop, Flooring America, and the Pizza Factory building. I had one time had bigger plans of a redevelopment in that location. Due to some personal issues, I've had to kind of limit what I do. And they've sat vacant for a while because of the personal reasons. I am at this point, actually will start advertising those spaces for lease come this Friday. And we'll be leasing out all the spaces. So I do anticipate a high level of interest on those spaces, as so many people have found me through the years, whether it's my name, where I work, whatever. Obviously in selecting tenants, it's something that I'm going to pick very carefully as far as what tenants will go in what spaces. Not only am I looking for tenants that will add to the character of what we're looking as far as tenants downtown. Obviously potential restaurants, and obviously with the Horseshoe Bar and Grill, somebody's probably going to want a restaurant there. Most likely Flooring America is going to be moving to the back next to the warehouse. So the Flooring America building will be open for lease also. The Smog Shop we're kind of waiting to see what kind of interest we get and how we will use that. I'm aware that the town really doesn't want that used as a smog shop and heavily considering that. I've had some calls on it and have not accepted them. So I told Sean I'd be more than happy to sit with him when I get, obviously, hopefully quite a bit of interest, talk about the tenants we're looking at. And as far as the architectural, I don't really have any plans what to do. That's why I asking for architectural assistance. Also willing to take any comments from the city staff, anybody has. Obviously, the Loomis News Building's 5 different colors. That needs to be fixed. I know that the green pizza factory awning around the building will come down. We were going to do some sort of other facade there. It's getting old and it's too expensive to replace. So, yeah, definitely just looking for some assistance with the architectural to decide how we kind of blend, not all of them together, but the Horseshoe Bar and Grill and the Loomis News should kind of blend right now. It's like I said, it's all different colors. When Sean had mentioned this program to me, it's
5 spots, and just, how important it is for the town, because they're just the most important corners of our town. So in terms of prioritizing in your, with things that are going on with you, then I would just want maybe some assurances that it's going to be a high priority, that you will,
Oh, extremely high priority. Like I said, I'm putting these, I actually have my own real estate company, and I'm putting signs up on Friday, and it's hitting LoopNet on Friday. So it's something we're immediately going to do. I expect some extensive TIs in some of the spaces, so that, my goal is to have it all leased up by September, October, and actually have tenants in there. But the backside of the Loomis News Building needs some work, and we're waiting to figure out what tenants are going in there, because obviously the Loomis News Building, Horseshoe Bar and Grill, that could be one lease space, 6,000 square feet. It could be 3,000, 1,200, and 800, and so it depends on what tenants we get in there, how we're going to put it together.
Yeah.
But the facade improvements, those will start immediately as soon as we get some architectural guidance.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councilmember Duncan?
I just have, so the existing businesses that are there, like the Pizza Factory, they're not going anywhere?
No. I've been in discussions with Eric. Obviously, this has gone on for 3 to 5 years. Originally, I was trying to acquire the parcels to do a new development, and then when that came together, something else happened. But I've been in touch with Eric all along. He wants to stay. I'm actually meeting with him tomorrow night, I guess. Thursday night, to just finalize, because right now they've been on a year to year. It's been difficult for them with their, yeah, whatever, the pizza factory, I can't think of where I'm going. But anyway, we're going to work it out so everybody can say that Dr. Fleming is willing to renew at this time. And like I said, Flooring America, we're going to move them to the back. What used to be the sound studio, we're gutting that, and then we'll put his showroom in there, and then he'll continue to utilize the warehouse, which allows us to open up the Flooring America building for maybe something bigger. And if, when I talked to Sean, there might be the potential we might knock down the smog shop and do a patio out there that would go with it. It all depends on what we get and what type of tenants there, but that's something that is there. And my goal is not, overall dollar, it's about putting a project together. I mean, this is a dream, what I really wanted to do there, and one of these days I still hope to fulfill that, but this is, I won't say put some lipstick on the pig for some time to get some finances in order and get them leased out and get some money coming into the town of Loomis.
All right. Well, thank you. That sounds great.
Any other comments? So it's worth noting that, Larry, our money's good for a year. Larry?
Oh, yeah.
Our money's good for a year, and so you got to go to work on this pretty quickly. We did that because we want to incentivize you to get something done quickly. It's been a long time, and I've gotten a lot of calls since I've been sitting in this seat about these properties. And so the town and the people are very eager to get something going, and I'd encourage you to consider small town, small family-oriented type businesses to go in there, because I think that's what, that's the fit, small spaces, and so on. So please make this a priority. I think it's also worth noting that the town has been coming after you in a lot of ways, trying to get your attention in a lot of ways, positive ways, for years. And so I hope you can see that this is our way of trying to work with you, right? And a lot of cities would perhaps take a different approach, a more aggressive approach. We want to work with business owners and property owners in the area. So let's make it happen, all right?
I want those empty spaces making me money, right? At the end of the day. But yes, it's all about getting those looking good and getting the right tenants to fit in there.
Okay.
There's no doubt.
Okay, public comment. Seeing and hearing none. Okay, bring it back to council. Do we have a motion? Want to entertain a motion on?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Noes? Okay.
Thank you.
Passes. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the operating budget. Roger?
Exciting stuff. Let's start this out right. So, in discussion with Councilmember Clark today, we discovered that there was a typo in the resolution for the GAN limit, which had us about $80 million higher than it should have been. So it's more like, we'll never collect that much in tax, we'll pay that much, so it's really didn't have to be. So I need to give you those so that when you make the motion, you have the proper resolution in front of you. Okay, let me bring up my budget. And this, for those of you who have seen my budget before, this is my budget dashboard that shows you where we stand as far as the numbers that are in the budget right now. We're at I think it's kind of a bummer, it was always my big thing. I'd come in here, would be $500,000 in the red, and would walk through things, and we'd come out in the green, and I looked like this great big hero. Well, this year we're already in the green, so if you want to just make the motion, we go home. No, just kidding. Let's talk about the budget. So you can see that our revenues, this is the general fund, exceed our expenditures by $205,000. There's always some decisions to make, but they're pretty slam dunk this year. Things that can affect the general fund. One of the questions is whether we get COPS funding this year. There was always $100,000 that came in from the state. Right now, the county's administering that money, and we're actually getting more like $130,000 to $150,000 each year. So we're actually building a fund. So this year, where it says should the general fund cover, I could use the pointer, couldn't I? Yeah, like the pro. Instead of using the arrow, I never get to use it. I love it because it's green. There we go. Okay. I'm not going to, yeah. So anyway, so here I'm asking, should we fund in excess of the amount, the COPS fund doesn't, okay, let me back up. The COPS fund we are using to pay for our traffic enforcement officer. He's costing us about $200,000 a year. So we don't have enough money in that fund to cover it, usually. And so we end up usually paying about $100,000 on top of that. Because that fund is built up, I'm recommending we use $50,000 of general fund money, and that will actually leave us more for future years in the COPS fund. Now, if at some point we want to massage some of these numbers, we could bump this to down to zero and still have a little bit of money left over in the COPS fund this year. I'm leaving it as it is for the time being so we can discuss it if it comes up. One of the other questions that I always ask is, do we want to apply the CPI to the allowable maintenance districts? These maintenance districts we were talking about before, for the first 15 years that we had these, some of them had an allowance to have a CPI attached to it, to where each year it would go up by the consumer price index. But the council always waived that because they wanted to keep taxes low. Ultimately, we discovered that if we didn't start raising those, we wouldn't have the money to complete all the costs at the end of the 50-year cycle. So we started applying those on a regular basis about 7-8 years ago. So I've got this in here now. If you decide we're not going to, then we have to go back to that agenda item that we just passed and massage it and change the numbers. But I highly recommend that we continue to use the CPI. Otherwise, like I said, inflation would have taken it way past the cost. As I say, by the time we run out of money, all along have retired. But we don't want to ruin the world for our kids, right? So that's that. I always have this question: if we had to fund something out of reserves, we don't need to now because we're in a positive. So that's those questions. The other decisions that we sometimes talk about, we funded. So the planning consultants is a given. We need to have that. I just couldn't take it out without destroying my graph, so I left it in there. General plan update. The last 2 fiscal years, we budgeted $200,000 for the general plan update. I'm recommending we fund another $200,000. So what that gives us then in this coming fiscal year is $600,000 that we can use towards the general fund update if we wanted to start at this point. I'm going to leave that for a later discussion, but that's there. There's also this master plan that's at zero. We funded $50,000 for 2 years in a row.
Roger, hang on here. Okay. Let's take some questions, right?
Do you want us to ask for questions as you're going, or do you want us to come back?
Let's do it. My preference is do it as he's going.
Otherwise, you'll forget about it.
Okay.
So yeah. So
I'd like to, if I can, bring it back to the council so we can discuss the general plan number, the 200,000. So I think it's low, only because we only have 400,000, and it costs a lot of money to do the update. And while that may not happen immediately, we do have to plan for it. And I just don't think 200 is enough. So I would say more like 300. That's what I would think. So.
Okay, you want to start taking notes on some of these items? Let's table that, and then we can bring it up towards the end. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So there's also $50,000 or $100,000 that's been set aside. So each year, although I budgeted it, we didn't spend it. So what we do then is we encumber it, and it becomes a part of the fund balance, which I will show you in the next slide. This code enforcement number here is 1.5 times where it was last year. What we did was we took the one day a week contract and added a half day per week, or an extra day every other week. We talked about trying to get to 2 days a week. The fact is, we don't think we can get her time for that. And so, while we could fund for it, we probably wouldn't spend it because she doesn't, at this point, she doesn't really have the open time to do it. So, council travel budget. I put $17,000 here. In the past, it was $7,500, which was $1,500 per council member. That covers most of your trip to the League of California Cities. But if you wanted to do another training or something, the money just wasn't there. So what I've done is I've bumped it to $2,500 per council member, then added, I'm going to say $4,500, but it's more than that. About $5,000 for one council member to go to the cap, if that's what you decide to do with it. An alternate plan for that amount of money would be to give each council member a $2,500 budget to spend as they wish. If you wanted to buy American flags for every kid in Hart H. Clark Powers, and you wanted to do that, you could certainly do that with that money. That would be, it's not the way it's described in the budget. It says travel budget. But Sean and I talked about, I don't know, a year or so ago, that most councils have discretionary funds that they can spend as they wish. That's another discussion for you, however you want to call that. Finally, the community swim. I haven't heard the numbers. It started last Friday. I'm assuming somebody was there as kids, because we did get some calls, was it happening? And so the question is, do you want to keep funding $5,000 to keep the community swim going? I left it in there. Personally, it's a lot of extra work for a few people, but if it's used, if people go, if the people are enjoying it, I say we'll go for it. I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard. Friday was the first day. I had to leave early, so I didn't hear. So we'll have to report at the next meeting.
Let's try to track what numbers.
They do keep track of how many kids come in. So
what numbers we're actually doing what we did last year. If we need to do more to promote that, and if that's something we need to do, whether it's on social media or whatever.
Okay, so the one gripe I heard on social media, so we still only get 6 days or 7 days. We can't staff it for more than that. Again, unless you want to hire another person to take care of that thing, we couldn't get, the Dolphins don't have those days they can do it. We would have to get an alternate days. My jaundice is coming out here, but if it was up to me, I don't like swimming, but a lot of people do. So if you want to keep it in, well, I'll just leave it in for now. I don't know if we can really up that any. There's so many things that we need to do as staff that we're not getting to just because we just don't have the time to do them. And I hate spending a lot of extra time on something if only 8 kids a day come to it. So yeah, we need to find out more. Okay. So those are the different questions I talked about. Let me show you quickly.
Hang on, Roger. Question from council.
So, Roger, I'd love to see some money in the community services fund for community outreach, for us to maybe do some educational forums for our citizens. Okay. So, I'd like to see some money set aside for that.
Do you have a number?
I don't think we would need that much, but maybe 5,000, 4,000, something like that.
I guess it would all depend on what type of programs you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't think we'd need that much money, really.
What types of programs are you thinking?
So,
not to get too far off.
Well, it might include, we want to mail out to the public what we want to have them come and see, education on what is our general plan, education on what is our housing element, education on what meeting us.
So government workshops,
so
basically.
Community outreach,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So maybe 2,500, I don't know.
I'd recommend that you just do 5, and if it's not enough down the road, we could do a mid-year adjustment to increase it. I don't think that you would need to spend more than 5, but it's better to have enough than have to come back and ask for more.
Okay.
So I would just recommend it. You put it at 5.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, let's add that, and then we'll come back to it in the end since it's not in the budget. Okay. Roger, go ahead.
So the last thing I wanted to show you before we dig into the nitty-gritty is I want to show you where the reserves are at. This is a chart that shows the reserve balances the general fund reserve balances since 2012. The most important bar, of course, is going to be the one on the right end of each of those little groupings. Ignore the miscellaneous designations. That includes things like cops set aside, some extra money that we designated for the cops in case that ran out, the supplemental law enforcement, for the other post-employment benefits costs, things like that. That's, again, there's some fire mitigation costs in there. The general plan, master plan update, you can see this bar right there is at right about $500,000. That's how much we've set aside in the general fund from the prior 2 years for those two items. Business assistance fund we talked about. It sits at $100,000 right now. We're going to be using some of that this year. Community facilities was a designation that was up over $500,000. It was, part of it was used as we developed the town hall. So now it's down here at about $250,000. The general policy for the town is if there's excess revenue and excessive expenses, it goes into street and roads improvements. And that's why this number is at just above $2 million right now. It goes up, it goes down as we, this is where we did the downtown master plan work. It bumped down, now it's working its way back up again. The council can reallocate fund balance as they wish. So just so you know. We've got right now, the district tax that we've been collecting is in excess of what we've been paying for the library. And you can see that there's a fund building here. We're at just about $200,000 of reserves for the library. My projection is that if the tax sunsets, if it doesn't get renewed, there's going to be over it's going to be over $10 million, over $1 million in reserves by that point. So probably close to 3 years worth of operations to come up with an alternate plan. That's not my expectation. I would hope that in just a few years we could actually renew that tax early if we want. Take it back to the people for an 10-year extension, and then that'll give them even more reserves for the library to work with. Finally, the operating reserves is general operating reserves. If the budget after we're all done is $100,000 upside down, we would take it out of general operating reserves to balance it. So that's where the reserves are at. So now, fix the budget. If there's something you want to do, I'm ready to dive in and go to different pages and make it what we want it to be.
Jen? Good.
So you want to start from?
Do you want to start back with the general plan?
Sure.
I mean, that one's an easy one to fix because I got a box here for it.
Okay.
It turns out my community outreach box connect is dead, so we'll have to go into the pages to fix that. But if you
we talked a lot about this in strategic planning, about get some more money into the fund for the general plan update. We want to get that done sooner than later, but it's going to take a few more budget rounds. So are there any objections, discussion?
No, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll bump that to 300?
Yes.
Watch the green bar.
And then we will bring it. We will open up public comment before we vote on it. So
yes.
Right now, what we're doing is just discussion.
Yeah, and then you did the community outreach one.
So if you want to go to community outreach, I'm going to bring that over here to the economic development page. So that's where it seems to fit the most. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bump town promotion up by $5,000 to $7,600.
Are there any objections with the proposed $5,000 for community outreach?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I have also a question on the public work facility fund and the fact that we have a park, Arcadia, I guess, that needs a bathroom. And I think I heard that the quote was going to be about $100,000 to put a bathroom there. And I would like to, talk to my council members and see what they think about possibly putting that in for this year.
I'd actually like Brian to be here for that.
Okay.
But we have talked a lot about that, so let's table that until he
Okay.
gets back, because that has been an ongoing discussion.
Right.
Since I have been here.
And this also would be where the shade structure goes, or does that go in that, I think that goes in a separate fund?
You know, yeah, we're just gonna take that on maintenance out of in the general fund.
Okay.
Well, unless, you know, actually we do a shade structure for more than a couple $1,000s, yeah, we'd probably take that out of this fund.
Okay.
But to do just the tables and umbrellas, we'll just take out of the general fund.
Sean, where's the Sunrise Loomis reference in here?
It's in the park, so.
So the page, it's on page. I don't
It's
have my
here, page
numbers.
42.
Page 42, okay.
So there's a reference in the budget to Sunrise Loomis Park improvements. That should actually be the county park improvements. The county is going to be requesting that we chip in some funding, $10,000 to fix those fields or help them fix those fields.
The parks.
Well, you can't see that, it's really tiny up here, but I've changed it, contribution to county park repairs,
Okay.
$10,000.
So is everybody clear about what that is? So the county's doing some upgrades at the.
Sunrise Loomis?
No, on the parks, off
To the King Road Park.
Oh, okay. They're bringing another baseball field in, and a lot of our constituents use that park. And
So if you
counties-
see on their page where it says restrooms on the page, that was actually where we helped pay for the restrooms out there at that park. So
Yeah.
this isn't a precedent-setting thing. It's been done before, that we worked with the county.
So it's actually not Sunrise Loomis repairs, park repairs, it's going to the county. So Roger's made that change. Jan, while you're gone, Brian, brought up the ongoing discussion about a bathroom at Sunrise Loomis Park. And I know that you've been in the room when we've had those discussions. And the idea would be that money would come out of in lieu fees, right?
Right.
The in lieu fee, which has how much, Roger?
Let's see. I have to get down to the bottom of the page where I can see it. Currently, we're at about $236,000.
Okay.
And so we say that bathroom's about $100,000 to do.
I would think, yeah, pretty close. Not less than, for sure.
Public Works has weighed in on this in the past, and so what is the vision there? In the past, what have we talked about as far as a bathroom? What, one bathroom, two bathrooms?
I think something similar to what we have on the side of the train station here.
Okay.
And a lot of that cost is water and sewer hookups. You know, those are just going to be fees that come up. Yeah, it'll be at least $100,000.
Okay.
Should we say 125? I mean, because I keep thinking this one costs us almost 70, and it's sub-adequate. It's not even quite adequate.
It is so bad. Yeah, we would do a better structure than what we have over here.
Candidly, I'd like to see the outhouse removed there and have a more permanent structure. Just from an optics perspective. And that park gets a lot of use. We don't have a lot of parks in the town of Loomis, and so we ought to be taking better care, I think, of the parks that we actually have.
Yeah, that would be the idea, is to take the portable bathroom out, replace it with a permanent bathroom. I think that maybe put it in at 125. We'll have to go out to bid, you know, and then bring it back to council to award the bid. And if the bid comes in high, we could do a budget amendment at that time. Okay. But if you set it up at 125, that gives us something to shoot for when we're working on the bid documents.
Any comments?
Sounds good to me.
So while we're discussing those parks, I spend a great deal of time at that particular park. It doesn't seem, the maintenance that's being done there, the mowing and things like that, the maintenance of the ball fields, things like that, is the maintenance of the ball field, does that fall within our landscape contractor, or does that fall under the baseball league, or how does that fall?
Well, the baseball league does take care of some of the baseball fields. They do the higher maintenance needed for it to be a play field. We have a very basic landscaping contract where they trim the bushes, mow, and fix the sprinklers.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like, I mean, I was out there watching kids play baseball the other day, and the grass is like 3.5 inches high, and it's basically mid-shin level, and then they mowed and it's still 2 3/4 inch high, you know, so I just think if we need to add money to the budget to actually upkeep these parks, we need to do that. Because right now with the portable restroom, with some of the other issues we're having at that park in particular with the bark and other things, you know, I think we need to come up with some more long-term solutions to save us money in the long run, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think where this has evolved from is that when we roll in all of our maintenance for our landscaping into one contract, and you know, for the trees and the bushes here, the lawn here, at our other parks, and a couple of small streetscape type planting. I think that we could increase our requirements on our contract. We can rewrite that and go out for bid. It will increase the cost considerably, but we could definitely up our standards on that.
Yeah, so when was the last time we went out to bid on that contract?
Once a year, or is it every 2 years?
No, we usually do at least a 3-year contract, and I believe it was 2 years ago that we re-upped it, but we basically used the same standards that we've had in the past. But I think what we're talking about here is kind of increasing our standards to a higher level.
And I don't think, honestly, what we're asking for is going to increase the dollar amount that much. We're asking you to mow at a playable grass level and not, you know, so it's just dropping a mower deck. I mean, there's just certain things that we have that we need to just do a better job. If we're using it for ball fields and soccer fields, it needs to be groomed for a ball field and a soccer field.
Who does garbage collection on? We do. We do. And sometimes that is overlooked, so.
Yeah, we do some of the garbage collection. We also are contracting with Recology to do some of our trash pickup.
At the parks?
It depends. They pick up some of our street cans.
Okay.
We do most of our parks.
At the parks, I see them over there pretty regularly.
Okay.
So.
But not on Saturdays, so, you know, if it's gonna build up over the weekend, there's nothing we can do about that.
Okay, so.
I would, just to kind of close the loop on the park thing, I think that the takeaway for me and for staff would be to look at sending out an RFP for new services, get a bid on that, and then if that bid comes in higher than what we already have budgeted, we'll bring that back and do a modification to the budget. I wouldn't recommend that you just start plugging in a number out of it, because we have no idea what that's going to be. So I would leave it where it's budgeted at this point, and then if we need to increase it, we'll bring that back.
Perfect.
So, but we'll get the RFP sent out as soon as we can.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's make it a goal to, you know, get moving on that quickly, because we're obviously not going to make this construction season, but it'd be nice to have something for next year, for the next summer. Okay.
Should we talk about the shade structure now?
Let's move on from that, and then shade structure. Okay.
Yeah. So Brian, want to talk about the shade structure? I think, I personally think it'd be a really good idea to put something in there for our, what do they call it? Splash park. And so I think we could maybe do something pretty artistic, and it would look nice. It's something that we could maybe take down, you know. And
a lot of those structures are like permanent fixed structures. Mm-hmm. You're starting to see them over a lot of areas. A lot of them are just simply over the play structure area. And they're almost like a screen material. Light still comes through, blocks some of the UV, keeps some of the heat down. And you see them, it'll be a series of 3 or 4 poles, however it is placed, with kind of a artistic looking tarp, or whatever you want to call that screen material. I know
shade cloth.
Shade cloth. I know that Lincoln has a couple that they've put in. I've seen one over in Rockland. When I travel down to Arizona, I see pretty much every park has that, but that is going without said. So I just think we need to do something on a more permanent. I hear from a lot of people saying, I would love to take my family there, but the tables are used up and the umbrellas, when the sun's in a certain direction, I can only sit in a certain place, and yada yada. And so I think that there's a lot of people that want to utilize this, and it's not being utilized as much as it could potentially be utilized.
At one point, we saw a report from staff on this, and it wasn't that long ago. It was within the last couple of years. Britt, you brought some renderings or some examples from other parks, and we looked at those, and then, if I recall, we took action on those, and then we did it.
Yeah, so the action was to get a temporary shade structure, and we were looking at actually doing like a pop-up kind of a thing. But in looking at that, staff talked about whether that was going to actually do it, if it was going to get wrecked, basically. And so we decided that it wasn't going to be worth spending the money on the pop-up when I could go get the tables and chairs, because there wasn't any seating then either. So we went and bought the table and chairs, got the umbrellas instead. If you want to do the shade structure, I'd recommend that you just give us direction to look at that and bring it back. I don't think that you should put money in the budget for it, because I have no idea what that cost would be.
I think we should take a look at it. I mean, obviously, it's going to be a pretty substantial expense because they're all pre-engineered and things like that. And anytime you get an engineer involved in anything, it gets really expensive. But
no
I just
offense,
think it's something that we should look at.
Sure.
And it creates a long-term solution.
Right.
Like we have examples of like when we built the splash pad here a number of years ago. The council at the time decided to go the cheapest route possible. Well, now we're looking at it, and it's going to cost us a lot of money, and it hasn't even been 8 years.
That's right.
So, sometimes the cheapest route isn't always the best route in a long-term solution.
Right. So if council's okay with it, why don't you, if you could give me direction or work with Councilmember Baker, figure out the best spot for the permanent shade structure. And Brian and I can figure out the kind of parameters of what that would be, and then we'll bring something back to council, maybe July. Well, probably July is probably too soon. Maybe August, September-ish, and then we'll take council action on it.
Okay. Any objections?
No.
That sounds good. Does that
Yeah,
sound okay?
sounds good. I just want to circle back, though, about the bathroom. Are we going to put that in the budget?
I did, $125,000.
Okay, thank you.
Out of the development impact fees.
Thank you.
So the only thing that I had hanging out left was any discussion about the travel budget, keeping it as is, or change it to discretionary funds for each council member. My recommendation to you would be to keep it the way that it is, the way that it's programmed at this point.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, me too.
Are you done? You're still going?
Yeah. I'm done.
You're done?
Yep.
Sorry. I sort of want to talk about one of the biggest
That's right.
things.
I'm just taking your questions. So if it was up to me, I'd call for a motion, but if there's any other questions or discussion.
One more thing, I just sort of rolls into some things we were talking about our strategic plan, and that is our capital improvement. And so I just want to let everybody know that I think on a monthly basis now we're going to get a list of the capital improvement projects that are set to go and what capacity, where they are in terms of, where they are going to be finished or not. And that's a huge part of this. So just wanted to make sure that staff.
Yeah, so we'll be starting that in July. So it'll be an ongoing update, basically the same thing as what the planning report is with the different projects. Yeah, it'll be basically similar to that. And as far as the actual CIP itself goes, we'll be bringing that back for updating in the fall sometime.
Sorry. Is that concerning the development fees? Or are we talking about raising the development fees?
This is CIP.
Oh, no, the impact fees, we do need to look into raising we're doing have you already got that going? Yeah.
Yeah, the CIP is actually a capital improvement project, so it'd be, fixing roads, spending money, and allocating and prioritizing what roads are going to be repaved first, or spending money to build a new play structure, that kind of stuff, and that would be the CIP projects. Normally, a CIP is like a 5-year plan, and you put really everything that you could think that you would actually ever need to get done in town into that that plan, some of them are funded and are encumbered for projects to be built. Some of them don't have identified funding. The ones with but it's important to put everything in there because oftentimes we'll find a grant that's available that'll work for a project that we don't have any identified funding for. But if it's not in your CIP, then you can't apply for the grant. And so it's important to really kind of throw the kitchen sink into the thing. The first 5 years, though, you want to allocate the money towards that, or the first couple of years you want to allocate money towards it, but you need to have a robust CIP with all those projects in it. This last year, the last one that we did, we started it with a 1 year and then increased it to a 2-year CIP because we have so much stuff going on at one time that we weren't able to get a fully fledged out CIP for the full 5 years.
And I guess to address your question, sometimes those projects could be funded out of development fees. For instance, adding that full third lane on Brace Road, that'll come out of the CR College development fees. Some of it.
And what I noticed is they haven't been updated since 2005, 2006, 2007. So
and that's what we've actually got that being looked at right now.
Okay, good. That sounds good.
I'll add on the fee thing, though, just for discussion purposes and not to get too far into it, but so we do a nexus study to determine what those fees are, and oftentimes that nexus study will show that the fees are at such a high of a level that nobody would ever be able to pay those fees. And so council is going to have to make, with staff's recommendation, obviously, you'll have to make it some sort of a discount on some of those fees, most likely, because if you charge the full amount that we're expecting new development to pay for whatever it is, you would shut down development every town would shut down development. You wouldn't have anything be built because the developer fees will be so high that nobody will be able to do anything. That happens across the board almost every time that you do a nexus study.
Okay. Any other comment? Thank you, Roger. Let's open it up for public comment.
Hi, my name's Bonnie London. I live in Loomis. One thought that I had is maybe some money for communications to the community. I know that when I lived in other cities, about 4 times quarterly you would get a newsletter that would have, what's going on at the library, what the pool hours might be, what hours the splash pad is open. Just a way to be able to kind of communicate regularly with the residents about what's taking place, and it doesn't have to be fancy. When I lived in Arden Park, it was just a little paper one that would come out, but it was always, when I would get it, eagerly go through, and a way to kind of feel connected. So
I think that's what we could envision using the community outreach money towards, right? Yeah. Okay. Any other public comment? Seeing and hearing none, we'll shut down public comment.
So there are 3 resolutions that need to be passed. Okay. You can pass them by simply saying, we move staff recommendation with the amendments made.
Okay. Do we want to entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion to
pass the approvals as
recommended.
As recommended.
With amendments.
Move the recommended action.
Move those recommended actions.
Second.
To
be clear, with the modifications.
With the modifications that we talked about.
As amended. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's take a roll call. Sorry.
Excuse me, Councilmember Clark Fritz?
Yes.
Councilmember Draper?
Yes.
Councilmember Duncan?
Yes.
Mayor Under.
Yes. Okay, budget passes.
Good job, Roger.
Yeah, good
Thank
job,
you.
Roger.
Okay, thank you, Roger.
Without puppets. Next year I'll bring puppets.
A lot of hard work goes on behind the scenes, so thank you. Okay, let's do council committee reports. Start down here. Councilmember Duncan, anything to report?
Let's see. I was able to tour the Rio Bravo biomass plant in Lincoln. It's called Rio Bravo Rockland, but it's actually in Lincoln because when it was built, it was considered Rockland, and then Lincoln got it somehow. I don't, the boundaries and everything, but what the biomass plant has been doing over time is using like the industrial or the construction waste, what's left over, and they would burn the wood for that and create energy. So now, I'm sorry, should have used my microphone. So the biomass plant now is looking at joining with different government agencies and using the dead trees from the forest to create energy. So we have this huge problem in the forest with all these dead trees and the bark beetle and everything, and trying to clear out the dead trees. Where do you could burn it up in the mountains, or you can bring it down for the biomass plant. So it's very interesting plant, and the smokestack, you see it from Thunder Valley. It's not a smokestack, it's a steam stack. So it, you might think, oh, it's creating pollution, but it's actually just steam. Very interesting. If you have a chance to go on, another thing with the Air Pollution Control District Board is now that we're in the summer, we're getting bad air days, possibly from the fires. But there's a site on www.placerair.org that you can check and see how the air is outside. And let's see, as well as look up the biomass plans. The other board I sit on is Pioneer Energy, and we are waiting on PG&E to decide how much the rates will go up, and we will go up, but we'll keep it lower than what PG&E is going to charge. But we don't know what PG&E is going to charge yet. So sometime in July, possibly, we'll find that out. So that's it for now for Pioneer and Air Pollution boards.
Thank you, Jeff. Jan?
Thank you.
I don't have a long report. However, I did attend the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency. Nothing much to report at that meeting. Also attended the Business Committee Economic Development meeting here in Loomis, which was really informative. We talked about all the projects that are coming up in town, which is great. I do have a question, and it's about the mosquito abatement. And I think that Russ Kelly is on that, but it would be great if we could hear from maybe an expert in that regard to, address our citizens and let them know what they can do to help with mosquito abatement.
They've come and done reports to us in the past, so 'tis the season. That'd be nice if we could arrange that. Sean? From someone on their staff?
I'll see if I can get them in the next month or so, either July or August.
Okay.
Maybe it'll be the giant cockroaches that they bring, and you can play with those. My kid loved that at the library. I did not love that at the library.
I'm on SACOG, and we are gearing up to release our next arena cycle. I've said that in the past, but there's a lot of staff work that goes on with that, and so in the coming months, this town's going to have to start really getting serious about our arena obligation and looking at where we're going to put something in the way of high-density housing as the state mandates. So let's all prepare for that. Yeah. Brian? Nothing to report. Okay, I'd like to adjourn in the memory of Canine Eros tonight. And with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Is he bringing friends?